Hello and welcome to another episode of Podcast DX, the show that brings you interviews with people just like you whose lives were forever changed by a medical diagnosis. I'm Lita, and for this episode, I am also Ron.
And I'm Jean Marie.
Collectively, we are the hosts of Podcast DX. On today's show, we're talking about heavy metals.
Is that why you have that Metallica tattoo on your neck? Way to commit to the show, Mom.
No. We are talking about the negative health effects of heavy metals, which may be ingested, inhaled, or absorbed through the skin, and can accumulate in the body and result in a number of different health issues.
Then why do you have that tattoo?
Moving right along.
Okay.
When I think of heavy metals, arsenic, cadmium, lead, and mercury come to mind. They are toxic to animals. Humans are animals, so humans are included, and are especially detrimental to the health and development of young children. I've heard about recent recalls for certain brands of cinnamon spiced applesauce, turmeric, baby food, and chocolate.
And also just recently, bottled water, Fiji water.
This is true. In addition to eating contaminated food, we may be exposed to heavy metals through the air and water pollution or contaminated medication or supplements.
And lead is sometimes added to, or has been, historically, to turmeric and cinnamon to enhance the color and therefore the sales price, because the brighter orange the color, the more they can sell it for. So placing the financial interests above human interest here, and it's quite unfortunate because you're then consuming that spice. And lead is thought to contaminate chocolate during the processing of the cocoa beans and other crops, including some rice crops grown here in the U.S., on land that was the site or previous site of mining operations, may also be contaminated with lead and arsenic as the plants absorb those heavy metals from the soil and water in that area.
Well, the signs of heavy metal poisoning are often not very specific, and they can overlap with other conditions. Your healthcare provider may recommend a heavy metal test if you have signs of metal poisoning, including, these are some of the signs you may have, abdominal pain, chills, diarrhea, muscle weakness, nausea or vomiting, shortness of breath, or tingling in your hands and feet.
And for most individuals, and most of us, heavy metal poisoning is not an issue. Our bodies may process and excrete a small amount of heavy metals. However, a large amount of heavy metals ingested or absorbed at one time or over an extended period of time can cause serious health concerns. The key here is that everyone can benefit from prevention and awareness.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Aren't heavy metals something that does not come out of your body naturally? So
No, your body does excrete to some extent.
Okay, but otherwise it keeps gathering and gathering and...
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now that we have a little bit of background information, it's time to talk about our initiative. To better serve our listening audience, we're an affiliate of a major medical supplier in the United States. You'll find affiliate links on our website, Podcast DX. They aim to tailor specific medical supplies and equipment based on your diagnoses to make it less stressful than looking through an entire catalog for what you might need. We're open to your suggestions and will adjust our offerings based on what you, our listeners, find helpful. But now let's return to our show. Jean, is there testing that medical providers can order in order to find out if you or a member of your household have been exposed to heavy metals?
Well, like hearing damage. Oh, wait, that's music again. A heavy metal test can check for potentially harmful metals in your body, and your healthcare provider can order this test if you have symptoms of heavy metal poisoning or known exposure to heavy metals. The test may use blood, urine, hair, or even fingernail samples. A heavy metal test checks for high levels of toxic or potentially harmful metals in your body. And, as we said, there are heavy metals in the environment and some foods and medicines and your water maybe. So you might be absorbing heavy metals through your skin as you breathe them in or as you're consuming them. And heavy metals, as we said, are safe in small amounts, but if you're taking in too much, then, it can cause issues. And without treatment, heavy metal exposure, and if it's an extreme case, can be actually fatal. And it also can be, really hazardous to younger individuals, as we know about, like eating. You shouldn't allow children to eat paint in general, but children who used to, would eat lead paint from older homes, and it can have extreme effects on their development. So, your healthcare provider can order heavy metal tests if they believe that is something that's needed.
So, like if you live in a apartment that was built,
they should do remediation, and they'll seal that older paint.
Okay.
And that's why when you purchase a home, there's a disclosure if there was lead paint or suspected lead paint, or if there was, other things like asbestos or other, things in the house that could be potentially dangerous, or if they built it over a toxic waste dump.
Well, what if when you were a kid,
oh boy,
you used to play with mercury?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, I'm just saying.
I know.
Because we used to play with mercury.
Yeah, I know, because you know what? It didn't stop when you guys got older, because we were also playing with mercury.
Well, we learned to play with it, so we probably thought we had fun. Let our kids have fun, too.
Yeah. Well,
they don't do that anymore, right? There's no more mercury in thermometers?
No, that's one of the reasons I think first of all, you don't want to be, getting mercury is hazardous to the health of the individuals that are going and mining it. And then it's dangerous to the people if the thermometer breaks. And then if your thermometer breaks and it gets into, the water system or whatnot. Mercury is still used in commercial applications, but
it's probably regulated.
Yeah, it should be.
Oh, all right. Well, so to review, heavy metal tests look for potentially dangerous metals when found at certain concentrations. For example, arsenic, cadmium, chromium, lead, and mercury. And a heavy metal test may also look for aluminum, copper, iron, manganese, nickel, selenium, silicon, thallium, and zinc. Well, wait a minute, zinc. Mm-hmm. Don't you take zinc supplements?
A lot of these metals you need in very minute quantities in your body. Yeah.
All right.
But if you have too much of anything is not good.
Right. Well, heavy metal tests will show your levels of specific heavy metals, and there are two possible outcomes for the test. Low levels, meaning that you do not have heavy metal poisoning. If you still have symptoms of heavy metal poisoning, your provider will likely order more tests to find out the cause of your symptoms. However, if you have high levels, that could point to heavy metal poisoning. You'll need to avoid exposure to that metal for a period of time, and your healthcare provider will give you instructions for avoiding exposure. And if avoiding the metal doesn't reduce your levels, then your provider may prescribe chelation therapy. And chelation is spelled Chelation.
One word that I mispronounced repeatedly in front of a group of my peers a long time ago.
Well, I wasn't trying to rub it in. I just thought I'd spell it for people that want to look it up later.
Okay.
Chelation therapy involves taking medicines by mouth or injection to remove excess metals from your body under the care of your healthcare provider. If your poisoning is serious, one treatment option is chelation, and with that, usually through an IV needle, the chelation drugs go into your blood, and they will stick to the heavy metals in your body, like Velcro, kind of. Just picture Velcro. Of course, you're not injecting Velcro. It's just a... All right.
And then these heavy metals will get flushed out through your system, through...
when you urinate.
Right.
Chelation can be an important part of treatment, but the therapy can be dangerous, and it does not work with all heavy metals. So doctors use it only if you have high levels of the metal and clear symptoms of poisoning. It's important to note over-the-counter chelation treatments, which, as I was doing research for this episode, I found many are not approved by the FDA, may not be safe, and there is zero evidence that they work.
Okay. So make sure you're consulting a qualified healthcare provider and utilizing qualified and approved medications. There are some laws to try and protect people from heavy metal toxicity. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, and the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, are two agencies that monitor, warn, and try to mitigate how workers can safely work in environments that are known to contain heavy metals here in the U.S.
Prevention sounds like the best idea if
Right.
you're avoiding problems from heavy metals. If you're worried about heavy metal poisoning, your doctor can give you personalized advice, but some general tips include: if you work with heavy metals, always wear a mask or other approved safety equipment. Check with your local fish advisories to make sure that the fish you eat are safe. If you live in a home built before 1978, hire an expert to test it for lead paint and, if found, to do a lead abatement.
And there's also a lead test, like they're kind of like pencils that you can utilize at home, because in the past, a number of children's toys were also found to contain excessive quantity, or any lead. You don't want lead in your kids' toys if they're putting them in their mouths.
Right.
So there are some at-home tests. You just want to make sure that it's a
Approved test.
right.
And then check the labels on products for heavy metals. Now, when they're talking about the fish advisories, did you know that here in the Chicago area, Lake Michigan, in the area of Great Lakes Navy Base,
Okay.
there was once a battery manufacturing plant, and that battery manufacturing plant polluted Lake Michigan, especially the shorelines around the plant, with extreme amounts of lead. And we could not eat any of the fish out of the lake for a long time. I don't know where that ended up. I'm assuming at the bottom of the lake, but yeah.
Yeah. And I guess also being aware and watching for recalls for both products and foods is important.
Right.
It's in keeping an eye on things, and if there is an advisory not to eat fish, and things of that nature, to keep an eye on that.
Right.
And if you want, we'll make sure we put some links on our website for this episode so that you can get more information.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps up this episode. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments related to today's show, you can contact us at podcastdx@yahoo.com. We have a website, podcastdx.com. We're also found on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, X, or TikTok.
And are you going to tell me the story about the tattoo after this? Okay. And if you have a moment to spare, drop us a line, drop us a review. And as always, please keep in mind that this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, and always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment and before undertaking a new healthcare regime. And never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this podcast.
Till next week.